Biomed Nexus Daily Updates, your essential biotech, medtech, and pharma recap. No noise, just what matters. TLDR PhRMA's CEO Steve Ubel announced he will step down at the end of 2026 after more than a decade leading the brand drug industry's main lobbying group. The departure comes as PhRMA's influence has been eclipsed by the Trump administration's strategy of negotiating directly with individual pharma CEOs on pricing and tariff deals. The FDA released its FY 2027 budget request, 7.2b, which includes a proposed expedited IND pathway to accelerate Phase 1 clinical trials using non-animal preclinical data. The agency is also seeking new enforcement authority over DTC advertising, 9 non-wireless for a domestic manufacturing pre-check program, and a 1-month Paragraph 4 filing head start for US-based generic manufacturers. This was the most consequential week in biopharma this year. Foundayo approved and shipping, Section 232 tariff signed, Gilead's 5B Tubulis acquisition, Neurocrene's 2.9b Soleno deal, Sanofi's Lunzecumig data, Abvai's 86% Humira discount on TrumpRx, the global pipeline contracting, Anthropic's $400 million biotech AI buy, and now the industry's top lobbyist is leaving. Executive takeaway: Steve Ubel's departure from PhRMA is a symptom of a larger shift. For a decade, Ubel led the industry's collective lobbying strategy through the pandemic, the Inflation Reduction Act's Medicare drug price negotiations, and the Trump administration's MFN pricing push. PhRMA spent nearly $38 million on lobbying last year, the highest on record, but the administration bypassed PhRMA entirely by negotiating pricing and tariff deals directly with individual company CEOs. 16 of the 17 largest drug makers signed MFN agreements without PhRMA's involvement. The trade group publicly distanced itself from those deals, but the result was the same. The collective voice was sidelined by bilateral negotiation. Ubel's successor inherits an organization searching for relevance in a policy environment where the White House deals directly with Lilly, Novo, Pfizer, and Merck. Meanwhile, the FDA is making its own moves. Commissioner Macary's FY 2027 budget proposes an expedited IND pathway that could fundamentally change how Phase 1 trials begin, explicitly framing it as a competitive response to China's faster regulatory timelines. Read full analysis, what to watch, PhRMA's successor. Search. The board has begun a search for Ubel's replacement. The new CEO will need to redefine PhRMA's role at a time when the administration prefers bilateral deals and the industry's biggest companies are negotiating individually. Expedited IND pathway. This proposal would create an optional, risk-based alternative to the traditional IND process using non-animal preclinical data, NAMs. If implemented, it could significantly reduce the cost and timeline for small biotechs to enter Phase 1. Watch for draft guidance and stakeholder comment periods. Foundayo Week 1. Data. The first full week of Foundayo's commercial availability wraps up today. Early TRX data will be the first competitive signal against Novo's oral Wegovy. User fee reauthorization. Multiple FDA user fee agreements. Drugs, biologics, devices, biosimilars, generics, expire September 30, 2027. Negotiations are underway now. The expedited IND and other proposals may be bundled into this legislation. Policy and Public Health PhRMA's longest-serving CEO is stepping down. What happened? Steve Ubel announced on April 8 that he will step down as president and CEO of PhRMA at the end of 2026, after more than a decade in the role, the longest tenure of any PhRMA CEO in the organization's 68-year history. The board, chaired by Merck CEO Rob Davis, has begun a search for his successor. UBL will remain until a replacement is appointed. The context. Ubel led PhRMA through the COVID-19 pandemic, the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act, which enabled Medicare drug price negotiation over PhRMA's objections, the Trump administration's MFN pricing campaign, and this month's Section 232 tariff announcement. Under his leadership, PhRMA expanded its focus on reining in PBMs, launched campaigns defending the 340B drug discount program, and added major members including Gilead and Genentech. PhRMA spent nearly $38 million on lobbying in 2025, the highest amount on record. Executive impact. The timing speaks volumes. UBL is leaving as PhRMA's institutional model is under pressure from an administration that prefers to negotiate company by company. 16 of the 17 largest pharma companies signed MFN pricing deals directly with the White House. The Section 232 tariff framework rewards individual company cooperation, not collective industry positions. Axios noted that PhRMA lobbyists have expressed frustration at the organization's declining clout. The Washington Post called Abel Washington's most powerful drug industry lobbyist. Whoever replaces him will need to rebuild PhRMA's value proposition in an environment where the biggest companies can get better deals by negotiating alone. Clinical and Research Updates FDA proposes expedited IND pathway to accelerate. Phase 1 trials. What happened? The FDA released its FY 2027 budget request on April 3, totaling 7.2B, 3.3B from congressional appropriations, 3.9B from user fees, a 3.2% increase over FY 2026. Within the budget, Commissioner Macquarie proposed a series of legislative actions, the most significant being a new expedited IND pathway. The proposal. The expedited IND would be an optional, risk-based alternative to the traditional investigational new drug process for certain Phase 1 clinical trials. It would allow sponsors to use validated non-animal testing methods, new approach methodologies or NAMs, to satisfy preclinical requirements, potentially reducing both cost and timeline to first-in-human dosing. The FDA explicitly framed this as a competitive response to China's regulatory framework, which has attracted early-stage drug development activity away from the U.S. other budget proposals. DTC Advertising Authority, new statutory power to deem drugs misbranded if DTC ads lack fair balance or create misleading impressions. Would extend to compounded drugs. Domestic manufacturing incentives, $9 for an FDA pre-check program to accelerate domestic facility establishment. A separate proposal would give US-based generic manufacturers a 1-month head start on Paragraph 4 patent challenge certifications, structurally favoring domestic production for 180-day marketing exclusivity. Biosimilar streamlining, proposals to resolve the statutory distinction between biosimilar and interchangeable biosimilar products. Executive impact. The expedited IND pathway is the most structurally ambitious FDA reform proposal in years. If implemented, it would disproportionately benefit small biotechs that currently face prohibitive costs in the traditional IND process. Fierce Pharma noted this is Macquarie laying out an ambitious legislative wish list 1 year into his tenure. The National Law Review called the Paragraph 4 Head Start a clever, targeted incentive that could meaningfully shift the calculus for companies deciding where to build capacity. Whether Congress acts on any of these proposals, especially with user fee reauthorization negotiations underway, is the open question. The week in review, this was the most consequential week in biopharma this year. Here is what happened. April 1st, FDA approved Foundayo, or Forglipron, Lilly's oral GLP-1 for obesity under the CNPV program, fastest NME approval since 2002. Shipping started April 6 through Lilly Direct at $149 month. April sued, Trump signed Section 232 tariffs, 100% on imported patented pharmaceuticals, tiered exemptions for onshoring 20%, MFN pricing 0%, allied countries 15%, generics, biosimilars exempt. April 3, FDA released FY 2027 budget 7.2b with expedited IND pathway proposal and DTC Advertising Enforcement Authority. April 6th, Neurocrine acquired Soleno Therapeutics for 2.9b, VICAT XR, Prader-Willi syndrome. Anthropic acquired Coefficient Bio for 400 meters, 10-person biotech AI startup. Takeda terminated its 8-year partnership with Denali on a frontotemporal dementia program. Citeline reported the global pharma pipeline contracted for the first time since the 1990s. April 7th, Gilead acquired Tubulis for up to 5 Bs, ADC oncology platform, its third acquisition in 6 weeks totaling 15 B. Sanofi reported mixed phase 2 results for lunsekimig, hit in asthma, to CRSWNP, missed in eczema. AbbVie listed Humira on TrumpRx at an 86% discount. April 8th, PhRMA's CEO Steve Ubel announced he will step down at end of 2026. FDA released FY 2027 budget with expedited IND pathway proposal. Read, full analysis, Biomed Nexus Pro. Institutional Intelligence Briefing. Today's Pro Brief, PhRMA's relevance problem. Why bilateral deal-making has undermined the trade group model and what it means for the next CEO expedited IND deep dive. How the proposed pathway would work, who benefits most, and the China competition framing the week that changed everything. What the convergence of Foundeo, Section 232, 8B in new M&A, and a PhRMA leadership vacuum tells you about Q2 2026 updated Catalyst calendar, upgrade to Pro. Today, read full article. Selective 2026 sponsorship placements are available. Reply directly to discuss a partnership or submit an inquiry here.